Please give a warm welcome to our panelists. And Jake, we're going to begin.
Great. So thank you. First, let me thank Lei Lei for hosting us. I remember what Paolo said yesterday, that a good test of a conference is how much you get out of it versus how much you contribute. So I also am very much in the plus column, so I'm winning. I'm learning quite a lot from you, so I appreciate that. And I hope to be able to share with you some of the things we did at MIT over the past few years. I guess some context. I joined MIT 4 years ago. Prior to that, I was at INSEAD in a similar role. I served as the Dean for Programs at INSEAD for a few years. And I'll share with you more about MIT and what I found when I arrived there and what we've done over the past few years, as I said. I remember with the topic of building a sustainable business school, I thought for a second maybe we'll talk about sustainability, which I'm very happy to talk about as well. And maybe I'll tie it at the end because it ties to building a sustainable business school in my comments. But I guess as I think about building a sustainable business school, I try to keep things fairly simple. And for me, it's what's going to make us succeed in the future. And it is to develop offerings, course offerings, and I'll speak mostly about degree programs, course offerings that have strong student demand, build on faculty strength, and meet market needs. So connecting very closely to our recruiters as well. So with that in mind, I'll share with you what we've done. So one thing that's very important to understand at MIT is the Institute was founded in 1861 to be different from the school up the river at Harvard. And it was founded to have a motto of mens and manos, mind and hand, theory and practice, and the importance of fusing academic knowledge with practical purpose. And you'll see that many things we do today, 155 years later, still very much lives that motto. And we differentiate with that, with our action learning labs that we have, the experiential, learning by doing that is so embedded within our curriculum. So again, this is the motto, and you can see the scholar as well as the blacksmith, and the need again to have both academic rigor and marketplace relevance. So I'll start with this slide, which explains our ongoing focus, and then I'll track back a little and show you what we did. But in essence, it's to build and strengthen each program to reach its highest potential. We have many programs, we have many activities, many initiatives, many centers, and for each we want to make sure we build and strengthen each program to reach its highest potential. And of course, one of the programs is the MBA program. So we think very carefully about how do we market the MBA program? How do we differentiate in the MBA market? How do we make sure that we attract the right students, and once they're admitted, that they decide to accept our offer and come to MIT? How do we make sure they have the best experience throughout the two-year program? And then how do we make sure that they have great opportunities to go to once they graduate and become alumni? So it's really to build and strengthen the program to reach its highest potential. And we think about this regularly, faculty, committees, staff, and throughout the school. Now, MIT Sloan is unique, and it was a change for me, coming from a place like INSEAD, which has one degree program for the most part, the MBA, it's the largest MBA program in the world, to MIT, which actually has a small program, an MBA program that only has 356 students. And it's by design. When Dave Schmidtlein joined MIT, he had to make a decision that was, do I grow the program? And he needed to grow, but he didn't want to grow the MBA program. It was very important for him to keep it small so everyone can get to know each other over the 2 years. He didn't want to increase it to the same size as Wharton or Kellogg or Harvard, which are quite large. And instead, the way growth came about was by growing the portfolio of programs. And now we have quite a number of specialized master's programs, which I'll share with you in a second. But our second ongoing focus is to identify and build on the synergy value from our portfolio of program strategy. It's a different strategy. Some of you are in this space as well, playing with master's programs. Many of our other peers are more focused on the MBA, but for us it was important to build a strategy that has a portfolio of program strategy, and then to work very closely to identify the synergy value between those assets. So whether it's the Master of Finance and the MBA, or the Sloan Fellows and MBA, it was important to identify and build on that synergy. The third point, which I think is very important, again, very different from my previous employer, is it's MIT. And it's the management school of MIT. Yes, it's the Sloan School, but it's very important to understand that we are MIT's School of Management. And in the 90s and throughout the history of the school, sometimes we moved closer to MIT and sometimes we moved away from MIT. At this point, we're moving, and we believe the right direction is to get as close as possible to MIT and be MIT's School of Management. It is a very good time to be close to technology, as many people tell us. So we want to strengthen the collaboration across MIT to capitalize on the Institute's distinctive intellectual excellence and impact. And we recently went through a rebranding, and if you saw the new logo of MIT Sloan, you will see that we emphasized MIT's School of Management, and to some extent took away some of the focus from the Sloan School. It's still, of course, the Sloan School of Management, but for us, it is very important to be close to MIT, to build on the assets of the institute, of the university. We want to play to that strength. We want to be MIT's School of Management. And the fourth point is to communicate our unique value proposition to various stakeholders. MIT has not necessarily been that good at communicating the things we do, and we think we can change that. And to attract more students, to attract the right students, it's important to tell our truths and how we are unique and how we're differentiated. So these are our ongoing focus, and we do that every day. We think about this. All the directors in the programs know these quite well. They meet regularly, and we focus on these. Now, when I first joined, it was a very different experience from my previous role. And again, as I said, there are many programs, there are many degrees, and they weren't necessarily so connected. There wasn't a clear understanding as to why we had so many and what was the distinction between each. So what we did is our sense-making to try to understand how we should position, and I had an artist come, and Calvi Bird, who came up with this, I think, beautiful diagram, and she tried to capture the essence of each program, what makes each program unique. And I love it. It captures the mission, it captures MIT, it captures what the motto is and the various programs and the unique differentiators of each program, but truthfully, I'm an accountant and a lawyer, and I love creativity, but creativity with accounting gets you, in trouble. So I decided to maybe make it a little more crisp and clear and capture it in this way. My wife, who's an artist, disagrees, but I think for me this works a little better, and it shows you what we're doing. We have decided to really understand what makes us unique. What are the areas of excellence that we have? And they fall into three. Management, but not necessarily general management. Management more around entrepreneurship, innovation, and technology. Finance, and analytics. And we heard that analytics is the new global, and I think many programs are thinking about this. So these are the three areas, and you could see also that the graduate program now very much looks like the undergraduate program. It was important to create the mirror image. In the past, the undergraduate program had one major and two minors, very different from what we have today, and we restructured that completely, and we created the mirror image between the graduate and undergraduate portfolios. Where I think it's more exciting is around the vertical overlaps. So one vertical overlap is between technology and finance. We heard from a number of the speakers around finance and what's happening in the world of finance. I think there is disruption taking place clearly, and one thing that is moving very fast to disrupt those money center banks is fintech. And we have great student interest in fintech with faculty strength in fintech, and we have market demand in fintech. Thus, it meets those criteria that I have for creating and launching activities. So we launched fintech offerings. We had a fintech conference. We attracted faculty from around the country to come and join us around this. The other one is finance and analytics. One of my faculty members who's creative called it Finalytics. I love it. Finalytics is the intersection of finance and analytics, and because of that, we were able to launch a new concentration in our Master of Finance in quantitative finance and financial engineering, in essence, Finalytics. Another area that is very important for the future is cybersecurity or digital resiliency, and that is really the interplay between technology and big data analytics. So we're now doing a lot more in cybersecurity. We have some very strong assets across the institute. Some are in Lincoln Lab, some are in the engineering school, in the media lab, at Sloan, and we want to bring them to bear to create new offerings for students. We know that there is strong student interest. We know that there are strong faculty who do work across the institute in this, and there is great market demand, which we hear from our friends at the various consulting firms and other places. So we've done that, and in essence, this is the strategy, and to create as much vertical overlaps or horizontal overlaps or connections between some of these offerings. One of them, of course, is sustainability. As I mentioned, we have a certificate in sustainability, but now we're looking to do more across the overlaps, such as finance and sustainability. So we launched new courses in social responsible investing. Many of our faculty care about that, the students care about that, and we hear from recruiters that they want to see more people in this space as well. So these are some of the things we did, and I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Lei?
Okay. Got a little busy recently, so I don't have a PowerPoint. So I will just talk. And as we all heard from yesterday's panel, industries are facing some very heavy fundamental changes. So are we. And one of the challenges we face is how to build up the sustainability of our programs and to continuously enhance the return on investment for a business degree from us. At Rutgers, we have launched a number of initiatives in this regard to position ourselves in the right directions. And I would like to share with you a few of those. One of those we did is to integrate the trend of industry in our day-to-day classroom and curriculums. We want our students to have a better life after graduation. And so one thing we can do is to train them to become more alert and to have a vigilant mindset to the early signals of emerging business problems, the day-to-day dynamics of the operations, and the changing global market, and the needs for innovation that happens everywhere. And another thing we can do is to help our students to build up the capability to catch the business opportunities, to help them with a sustainable business career. And incorporating the industry trend in our classroom teaching really helped our students to build up this kind of ability. We also have a number of courses that are heavy, not only just in terms of case study, but also case computation. And we have a number of companies working with us to let us to use the case based on their day-to-day practice. And then they are going to evaluate the performance of our student during the case computation. It takes a lot of effort to do that. Not only we need companies support us, but also we need the faculty to buy in, to work together. And the good thing is, after all this effort, we have many students receive the internship offer or even job offer after case computation because the company found whom they want to hire through their performance, through their presentation for problem solving during the case computation. And the second initiative I would like to share is that developing a school-specific strategy for building the industry bonding. And we are professional school, business schools. The industry bonding, just like alumni bonding, is also very important for us. And for the success going forward, for Rutgers, this industry bonding strategy is heavily location-based. We are a New Jersey school. And in New Jersey, the top 5 industries are pharmaceutical and biotech, transportation, and we are also very heavy in the manufacturing, healthcare, technology, and we are very close to Wall Street, so we work very closely with the financial industries. This location proximity allows us to develop a close tie with those industries. And so we built the strength of our program around it. And New Jersey is just like Georgia. It's also a national logistics hub. From New Jersey, you can reach 40% of US population within 1 day drive. So that means a lot of logistics jobs. And from working with a pharmaceutical company, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York has over 700 biopharma companies. It's a lot of opportunities. So those opportunities allow us to build a strong educational partnership and sponsorship to different activities. So even for today's IGBE conference, we have our sponsors. Those companies sponsor this whole conference, from J&J to Prudential to Goldman Sachs. So name it, we have a number of companies sponsor us. This also allows us to build industry-specific programs. For example, we have a pharmaceutical MBA program. It's a very successful one. And we also got a whole pool of recruiters. We got over 500 regular recruiters recruiting our students. I just share with you one thing. Last fall, we had a 1-day recruiting for a single major. That's a supply chain management major. That 1 day on campus, we got 75 companies came over. What happened? How come we got so many companies? Because a regular recruiter also brought in their supplier or their distributor. So in the interview room, you have not only individual companies, you have supply chains there. So I think that is really help us to build up sustainability as well. The industry focused, specific is a school strengths, our uniqueness focused bonding strategy. The third thing is to be forward-looking, to go beyond traditional MBA program. There are 3 reasons for that. Number 1 is the U.S. urban population. It will continue to grow. And within next 20 years, the urban population will become twice of a rural population. That means a lot of job opportunity will be there to meet the needs of the urban market. Second thing is we have a very large millennial population. That is the largest living generation in the US. We are talking about 75 million of them. And this generation is quite different from many of us. This generation, they are career changers. they're based on the S prediction, those millennials will change 4 different jobs within 10 years after the college degree. And right now, 38% of them are looking for the opportunity to change a career. You're talking about 28 millions. The third thing I want to mention is about why we need to look at beyond the traditional MBA. Is in US, we have another large population. That's a veteran population. There are 22 million of those. Just New Jersey alone, over 500,000. They serve the country. Now they're looking for us to offer educational opportunity for them. They may not have enough funding to pay $100,000 for MBA. They may not have time to devote 2 years in school, but they are looking for education program for them. This is a huge population. You put them together. And so we launched a large number of specialty master programs during the past few years. We have 11 of them, such as healthcare service management, such as a specialty masters in business of fashion, such as supply chain analytics, and we also have a number of those specialty master programs in accounting and in finance, quantitative finance, financial planning. Those are very popular programs. And we have a mini MBA program series with a 10 certificate program that are designed and offered for the career changers. That we also had some new program related to technology, commercialization, and real estate. And one of a student project through our technology commercialization got a top prize from Department of Energy. We have engineering student, business student working together. Student got very happy. They got $50,000 back home. So, the last thing I would like to share is that we are a public business school, and we have a job to do. That is, we have to create our social impact. Because to build a sustainability for public business school, just like to build sustainability for business, for private business, we all have to take the social responsibility seriously. And we have the business knowledge. What can we do for this community? I just give you one example. New Jersey has over 15,000 manufacturers, smaller ones to large ones. And they all need help. And we can do something for them. One example, somewhere in Newark, there is a small manufacturer for socks. And also in New Jersey, there's a very large healthcare system. It's called the Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Healthcare System, with an annual revenue $5 billion and over 300,000 inpatient admissions per year. But the healthcare system, they purchase socks from India. And our faculty made a connection. So that helped these Newark small manufacturers increase their revenue by 35%. We also have entrepreneur centers. Their faculty not only doing scholarship work, they also help entrepreneurs, over 160 of them, to launch the business, to survive the first 5 years. So these initiatives, to us, it really help us to build up sustainability in terms of we turn the company into our recruiters, and we turn our recruiters and into our students because they help us to recruit the student. So we grow our undergraduate steadily and very healthily at 10% per year during the past few years. And this year, our graduate program enrollment increased 20%. So those initiatives really help.
Thank you, Lei. François.
So just the title is intriguing, right? Sustainable business education. Why do we worry about our sustainability? So I won't go back to the factors because we have heard them many times in this conference, but I'll just point out how we heard about We've moved from being local monopolies, many of us, to being on a global stage for competition. And when I think about the big impact that it has had and the demand that it puts on the culture of our places, I think about how we have moved from an environment of abundance, where basically institutions like mine, every year we got some new money that paid the salary raises and gave us flexibility. So whenever we wanted to give money to Peter, we didn't have to take it from Paul, because it came from the taxpayers. So from this abundance, we have moved to a world of scarcity, where now there is no new money coming in every year unless we find it. And quite often, there is no way to make both Peter and Paul happy at the same time. And so what that means is, it means that we have to be accountable for our outcomes, because we are not getting paid by the students and the taxpayers, but we are being paid by the students and the alumni. And to be accountable for the outcomes, we have to make choices that are going to deliver the outcomes and make promises behind those choices. So that's the way I see the challenge for all of us in business education, in higher education in general. The opportunity I see is that we've heard it at this conference as well, there's tremendous demand for higher education. And there are tremendous and fast technological innovation. So within this context, when you are at a public research university like we are at Wisconsin, you ask yourself, what is then my day-to-day challenge? And you heard my question already earlier this morning, which, too bad he left, but I don't think he answered actually. The challenge is who pays for the research and the researchers. So it's a choice we made. First, we decided we didn't want to fold, we wanted to have a go at it. And second, we didn't want to give up on the research. University of Wisconsin is one of the big research powerhouses in the country. The choice we made is, can we leverage our alumni brand, which really comes in many ways from the prestige of our undergraduate program? Can we leverage innovations in technology that go beyond the technological platform, but really integrate innovations in education and in cognitive sciences? To have a go at creating an environment whereby the researchers are valued and paid for. So we summarize our choice and our strategy in a simple picture. The idea, if you start with the red, is can we move away from delivering teaching, that chapter 3 comes after chapter 2, to inspiring learning, taking in responsibility for the outcomes of our students. It's the same thing that happens when your doctor moves away from treating your symptoms to taking responsibility for your wellness. So can we use progress in technology, not just of learning, not just a platform, but cognitive sciences and neurosciences, to move away from delivering teaching to inspiring learning, so as to create a learning community that is not only successful because of the learning that they receive from us, but also grateful, and in particular grateful for the research that fed into the learning and that was the foundation for their success. And the hope is that if we can create enough value from delivering teaching to inspiring learning, we'll attract the tuition and the philanthropy we need to support the research, because it supports the learning that creates the success of our community. So that's the strategy. From the point of view of learning, to give you just one example of what it means to pay attention to evolution of pedagogy and not just a learning platform. So for example, we did not launch any new degree program in business analytics because we want to stay focused on that dairy cow of our programs, the undergraduate program. However, now we understand where across every class in our undergraduate program, where is it that we need learning outcomes in business analytics, that we can reinforce learning outcomes in business analytics, that we can apply them, that we can assess them. So our faculty has come together and across all the classes understand where do we introduce material, where do we enforce, where do we apply, where do we assess. And that now creates a thread for our students from their sophomore year to their senior year. And we know from research and education that that integration makes a big difference in terms of long-term acquisition of learning. How does it work? Well, going back to sustainability, a key element there, and it's come up a few times in the conference, it's come up more times for me in private conversation, is how do we get the faculty on board to contribute to, we call this the wheel at Wisconsin, to turning the wheel. It's not easy. It's a major shift for what we all thought was a tenure contract when we became faculty member. I don't know you, but when I started, I was at the London School of Economics at the time. It was very clear, do your research, make sure no one complains about your teaching, and don't be a jerk. Right? And then you work really hard, and then a few years later you get tenure because you've earned the right to do what you want. And what I think as a dean is that right really is the right to renegotiate by yourself every morning what you're going to work on that day. Right? The brand that we've chosen is Together Forward. What underpins this wheel and allows it to turn is the willingness for people to be accountable to one another and accountable to outcomes. And to one another, to do this business analytics thing that I talked about, this required accountable across departments, and in particular accountable across this huge divide that we have in our institutions between faculty and staff. Right? So it hasn't been easy. For the faculty, it also means that when you're involved in governance, you have to move away from being the constant expert and critic and occasionally the champion of your own cause to actually engaging in conversation and then aligning yourself behind a shared purpose. And that also is very difficult. So we try to work on the governance to try to create sustainability, to have a better model of engagement. And for example, our tradition of our governance was people who nod their heads, and now we make them vote. But that's not enough actually, because voting doesn't necessarily close the polls. And we had an executive in residence last week was telling me, you know what you're missing, François, is the get on board button, right? Because you could have unanimous votes behind the strategy and still have a few people in dissent who cause an enormous amount of time being spent by management. I'm sure we're all familiar with that. So things that have been helpful. It's been very helpful for us to be clear about our strategy. In particular, when we hire people and in the way we reward them. So for example, my senior associate dean is my first one was a professor of human resources, and he proposed to add to the campus visit of faculty member a 1-hour systematic interview around goodness of fit. And there was no secret to what he did. He had the slide that you see there printed, let the faculty sit down, put the slide on the table, and explained it. And then see how people engage. One candidate says, why are you explaining this to me? I just want a place to do my research and be left alone. We paid dinner, and he moved on. The last senior faculty member we hired on this, at the end of that interview, he said, okay, that's fine, I'm interested, I want to move in, I want to know it's real. After you, I want to interview your dean. And he interviewed me to find out, are we really putting our money behind this wheel? So that has worked. The other thing that has worked, Rich Lyons was talking about purpose yesterday, is to allow people to pick their purpose around the wheel. We don't have to have everyone turn the wheel by themselves. We found some of our faculty, including the young one, to be really inspired by the chance to be whole, one of them was saying, to be supported in pedagogy and to have great learning outcomes with their students and derive tremendous satisfaction from delighted students. In terms of research excellence, we have brought in PR strength, and now we help our faculty get media hits, and we measure, Rich is gone, you could tell him, we measure Berkeley's media hits and we measure Harm media hits, and for the past 2 years we have hit the same amount of media hits as Berkeley faculty without the same amount of publication. You know, when a faculty member gets 100 million reprints in the world, one of them actually, we even did a picture of the article so he could take and framed it so he could give it to his mom. Right? People like having impact. And if that's what their purpose is, then we facilitate that. And in concluding, I would say that there was one big purpose that has helped us inspire the most dynamic of our faculty members and also many of our staff members, is that word exemplary below learning community. We all know about our business school being about producing insights for people to learn from our research and producing talent into the world. Exemplary is about, can we be innovative in the way we approach our business model and help others create sustainable business education. And if there were just even one such little innovation that we did, or maybe one failure, if not a success, that people could learn from us, That's the way us as a public research university, talking about the mission, we can serve the world beyond just the impact of our research and the impact of our learning. And that, in terms of the kind of purpose that Rich was talking about, that is what I have found to be the most powerful purpose, to be exemplary in our innovation for many of our faculty and staff who are most aligned and who are giving life and to this wheel and making it turn. Thank you.
Thank you, François. Alex?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to, again, thank Lei for a wonderful invitation and the entire Rutgers team. It's been fantastic. And I guess my gift back is not to leave the host out as being the only person who doesn't have slides. I don't have slides either, so I'll make you feel very comfortable that way. So I think I want to underscore a number of the issues that were already raised. So first of all, why are we sitting here talking about sustainability? Clearly because we have challenges, but really when you think about the challenges, we've been talking mostly about the full-time MBA and the part-time MBA programs, not a lot of discussion about online not going well or executive MBA programs not going well. In many ways, we're doing great things for our students. They're getting a lot more services than they used to get because of the increasing competition we have, and they're getting a lot more money than they used to get because of the competition. So from the perspective of the student, I would say that they're doing actually quite well, at the same time that we're perhaps not doing quite as well in those particular programs. The other thing that I thought I would throw in there, which hasn't been discussed quite as much, is we're talking about ourselves, but clearly the universities have a lot of financial pressures. And some of these are for those of us from state schools, coming from the state budgets, but a lot of it is also coming from the competition generally at universities that is having the same effects that I was just describing, that is narrowing the margins that universities are receiving on many programs. And so what happens when universities start to have financial pressures? Well, they go looking for the business school. And the fact is we have a lot of opportunities that elsewhere in the university they don't share. They don't have those same opportunities for new revenue generation. So that is, I think, another thing that many of us are experiencing as well. The more that we can do to encourage the university to do some of the things that we're doing, the less pressure we may feel on ourselves. So in terms of our experience at the Smith School, but generally talking to many of you, I guess I would put the sustainability issue into three different buckets. One is seizing new opportunities, and there's been a lot of discussion about that, but maybe I'll add in a couple of things. The second is increasing efficiency. What happens to companies when they start to feel financial pressures? Well, they tend to operate a lot more efficiency. It's actually one of the great gains we know in a competitive environment. And the third category, I would say, is to shut down or scale down programs. And so maybe I'll say a little bit more about that because there's been a little bit less said so far. So first of all, in terms of taking advantage of opportunities, I think as several people have pointed to, there is now a surging demand for business education. We are in a wonderful space to be in. And we're seeing this a lot on the undergraduate side, where many of our universities, students are just tripping over themselves to get into our programs. And we've responded in many ways, instead of opening up our programs even more, by having minor programs, which I know many schools have been instituted, and we've done that recently over the last couple of years and found them to be very popular. We're responding with pre-experience or +1 programs, as we call them, like fifth-year programs. And many have alluded to, engineering students taking a master's in management, a master's in business analytics, and so on. And we have 5 MS programs, about to have 2 more next year, and we're seeing increasing demand from students at our university directly. Then obviously there's the whole international demand, not only in MS programs, not only in undergrad programs, but also in variations such as 2+2 programs where students at international schools may spend a couple of years at their institution, a couple of years at our institution. And so we're in the process of working out some arrangements like that. As many folks have alluded to, what's great is that business education is finding new markets with different populations. So we're seeing more women now entering into the MBA market. Lei mentioned the military demand, which has, again, surged over the last couple of years. So all of that in sort of the pre-experience market, if you like, is very, very positive, I would say, and we just have to seek out and take advantage of those opportunities. The other one that we've talked about a little bit less, but for those of you that were here this morning for Rick Levin's presentation, he had that pyramid. And that pyramid was corporate learning and development. And he showed that little peak, which is sort of our executive education space that business schools have traditionally resided on. That is a massive pyramid that business schools have in many ways ceded to businesses at large. They spend a massive amount of money on corporate learning and development. And I think that we have failed to seize part of that market for a couple of reasons. One is cost. Is often we sort of have this executive ed mentality of large margins, and we price at fairly hefty margins in those programs. And together with cost, I would say it's also convenience. And so the whole notion of being able to offer online programming and things that are a little bit better suited for the base of that pyramid. The other part I think that we haven't done enough, and this is where we're focusing heavily on at Maryland, is the customization. So I think that many companies have started their corporate universities because they feel that business schools have not provided a very customized product. It hasn't been customized for their company as well as they'd like, and it hasn't been customized in a practical sense for what the learners need to take away from it. So I think that there's actually a really big market there. It's a market that we've grown substantially in the last couple of years. At the Smith School, and I think that we should be thinking more and more about how to take back some of that market share, I guess, that we've kind of ceded to businesses. The second bucket, I would say, is increasing efficiency. Again, this is what companies do when they initially get into financial trouble. We have to basically practice what we teach. So we teach how to use analytics, we teach how to use technology to try to improve the efficiency of companies. But I think if you take a look at most business schools and certainly most universities, we don't really do what we teach. And so we have been trying to really focus a lot more on the analytics, understanding. Just to give one example, the efficiency of the use of physical capital. We have, how many schools are building new facilities? Why? Because they're running out of space. But really, if you go back and look at how can you reschedule classes in such a way to make it more efficient, maybe a little bit less convenient for faculty, that you can end up saving a lot of physical space. The same thing with office spaces. And then human capital, we actually struggle. We have many different locations where we offer our MBA program. And it's hard to do that in an efficient way where you have class sizes at the level that you'd like. So we're sort of going back and thinking through that in a much more systematic and analytic way. One of the biggest areas of consulting growth right now is in the higher ed space. And so what are they doing? I mean, part of it is focused on the student experience, but a lot of it is focused on sort of administrative efficiencies that universities and even business schools, I think, are not maximizing. And so that is an area that I think that we can put more focus on. And lastly, the perhaps hardest struggle we may have at many schools is shutting down or scaling down programs that are not making money, that have negative margins. And so step one is to figure out which programs are making or aren't making money. Well, we all kind of have an intuitive sense for that, but frankly, we had never done cost allocations based on different programs. So this summer we went back, took a look at hundreds of lines in our budget for faculty, for staff, for operating expenses, and started to allocate them on a percentage basis across all of our different programs, so that we could see exactly, what were our margins and how are they trending over time. So that's kind of step one, is sort of knowing a little bit better your accounting for various programs. and being more deliberate about it. So I think that there's 5 reasons why we hang on to programs that have negative margins. The first one is that they're mission critical. And so we've talked a little bit about state universities, research universities, land-grant universities. We have a mission, which is not only to teach, but also to do research. And so I guess the only thing I would say there is that perhaps we need to refine our mission. So if our mission is to be producing doctoral students, do we need to produce quite as many? Do they have to be in every particular area? Could they be more focused? That is, by the way, our largest negative margin program of all is our doctoral program. And for those of you that have similarly sized programs, you're well familiar with that. The second reason why we hang on to negative margin programs is that they're brand critical. And we know that there's schools that have basically are giving away a full-time MBA or drastically reduce the price as a way to get a high brand in the rankings that they can then translate over into their other programs. As Heidi mentioned a little bit earlier, there are now online MBA rankings. So you don't necessarily have to have a great full-time MBA ranking to be able to do well in the online space. As François just mentioned about getting content out there, getting the brand developed through not just rankings. And so we've also put together a similar dashboard, not quite the same comparison schools, taking a look at our media placements. And we put out new content called the Smith Brain Trust that now has thousands of corporations and prospective students that are reading our content on a weekly basis. So I think there's other ways of creating brand value. Third, we hold on to negative margin product lines, if you like, because they are startups. And so that's a great reason to have them, but we have to behave more like venture capitalists and be reviewing them very carefully and understanding sort of where we need to invest more and where we grow and what we cut early on. Fourth, and this will resonate with many of you, negative margin activities more broadly are often implicit faculty compensation. So that center that a senior faculty member has that you're putting some money into, you're basically providing additional compensation because that's the way you attract that faculty member to your institution. I'm not saying that that is wrong, but I'm just saying we should understand and maybe make it a little bit more explicit to each other, to the faculty members, exactly what that is costing us to try to keep them, to retain them or to attract new faculty. And finally, the other reason why we have negative margin programs is that we often may misinterpret a trend as temporary volatility. So my background is in options, and options have a lot of value because of volatility, but oftentimes when you see things going in a particular way consistently, it's not volatility, it is a trend, and you have to be disciplined to get out of that. So we're kind of keeping these 5 things in mind and kind of analyzing every activity that we're doing to try to cut out or scale down negative margin programs, trying to really focus on efficiencies and, of course, taking advantage of any new opportunities that we've been talking about over the last couple of days.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. So we have time for questions. There's 2 microphones at the front. I know this is not a shy group. Thank you, Paige.
This is a detailed question, which is why I wasn't going to ask it, but Alex, when you talked about how to cost your programs, or looking at that, you mentioned averaging costs around faculty and staff across programs as opposed to actual costs. In other words, actual, like the faculty who actually taught in the MBA program and how much they cost. Can you talk about that decision, or if I'm interpreting it right in terms of how you did it?
We actually did it in the latter way. So we basically went through for each faculty member, figured out exactly what course they taught, and put it into that bucket. Now, One debate, and we're actually going to be presenting this in a couple of days to our faculty at a retreat, but one of the debates is, well, if you have a tenure track faculty member, let's say that 50% of their load is research, just to use a nice round number, does that go into a separate bucket that we call research, which gets back to François' question of how do you actually cover that? Or do we say, well, you know, if you do have that virtuous cycle, the wheel that François was describing, where research feeds into learning, then, well, certainly if it's a PhD course, you figure that research must be related to that, and you could make the same case for specialized master's courses or anything. So we've actually allocated the research to that program. Now, I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of discussion about whether or not that's the right way to do it, but from my perspective, I think it is an appropriate way.
And if I can add to that, exactly for that reasoning, we did the same, and we are now pushing our faculty to think about the price of teaching within the margin, intramarginal, so as part of your load, how do we price that, versus the extra marginal price? Because, you know, as a dean, even though I'm in a public university, we get no state support. And so around the wheel, if the teaching is not supporting your base salary, then what is it? So if we don't price your 3-course load as 1/3 of your 9 months, who else is paying, right? And that forces, you know, when you apply your criteria, that forces a rethink about the appropriate allocation of faculty.
Great, thank you, Paige.
Hi, I'm Kate Ferguson from the University of Buffalo. I recognize that this is a conference about graduate business education, but in talking about building sustainable business schools, none of you really mentioned your undergraduate programs. So I'm wondering if you can just comment briefly about, with especially those of you who have large undergraduate programs, how that is working into your portfolio of plans. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. So each of you, if you wouldn't mind commenting, who would like to begin?
I'm happy to start.
Thank you, Jake.
We have a very small undergraduate program that we hope to grow. Our undergraduate program is 150 students. And the way we hope to grow it is by creating more value for the students of MIT. One thing that is different about MIT is every undergraduate is admitted into the institute and only then decides on which major and which school they'll go to. But we have a very small portion of the undergraduate body. We believe it's also because our offering wasn't necessarily resonating with the students. So we completely restructured the undergraduate over the past year. It took 3 years to do, but over the past year we did it. And now we have, as I mentioned, 3 majors and minors, one in management, but with a focus on entrepreneurship, innovation, and technology. The second is finance, which there was always keen interest from our students to go into the financial sector. And the third one is business analytics, which we never had, but given what we see in the market, we believe it's going to play well and play to the strengths of the institute.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a very large undergraduate program. And the Rutgers Business School operates on 2 campuses, here, New Brunswick, and also we have a Newark campus. And across 2 campuses, we have over 7,000 undergraduate students. And we also have a campus in China, and there we have about 400. And a significant portion of that will transfer to New Jersey. And even that is not enough. You know, New Jersey is the #1 exporter of a freshman. And a lot of us went to Maryland and Pennsylvania. And so we have been working hard for the undergraduate curriculum reform as well, to incorporate in the trend of the industry, to meet expectation of recruiters, because you see there are a lot of companies hiring from us. We do have regular meetings with the companies, like J&J, like Prudential, like those companies. And then what we do is try to talk to the recruiters to understand the weakness and the strengths of our student, and what can we do to further improve the quality. And we also introduced several new majors. From a different traditional program, we introduced new programs in order to meet the needs of the industry trend. So that is what we're doing.
So our undergraduate program is our big bet. I actually refused as a dean to get us going with all kinds of new one-year programs or online programs, because my argument was doing the cost allocation Lex talked about, is that our undergraduate program is actually very profitable for the campus. And it's a very safe product. I don't believe that Coursera will take over the whole undergraduate teaching. I don't think Rick believed it either. I don't think parents want their kids to stay at home and do Coursera from the basement. And so having a good product that is pretty safe, that's where we invested. That's where we have the biggest momentum in education innovation. Over my deanship, we've grown the population from 1,800 students to 2,550 this year. This has added a tremendous amount of resources to the campus through tuition and tuition differential. And before I leave Wisconsin as a dean, my hope is that I'll be able to clarify the business model with the campus to make sure that a significant portion of this value we created, we actually do capture, so we can continue to grow as a school. So it's the best product we have, but it's the one with the most uncertainty around the financial model and the relationship between us and the campus. If we could resolve that, the strategy is good to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just underscore that as well. I mean, I think that we could grow a lot more, but it comes down to that financial relationship with campus. In our case, we were able to strike a good deal for our minors, and we are finding that students all over campus, as I'm sure you are interested in getting some business, even if they're doing humanities or engineering or life sciences or whatever, which is why we're focusing a little bit more on our +1 or 5-year programs where they get a dual degree, which also financially we can control a lot better. So I think at the end of the day, we all see the demand out there. It's just how we can negotiate with our universities.
And maybe something to add for those of us in those big research universities with so many fields is the undergraduate business program in our school is 50% non-business classes. And the rest of the university is waking up to the fact that we are a great place to monetize a class in English literature. Because with us, it becomes part of leadership training for undergraduate students. And suddenly we're getting lots of interest from humanities faculty to partner with us, because their teaching with us has more value than their teaching to their own majors from an economic perspective.
Thank you, Kate. That was a great question. Yes.
Hi, I'm Paul Jarley. I'm from the University of Central Florida. And an observation and then maybe a question. You know, I really believe that organizations are kind of a reflection of their leaders. And in listening to the four of you, my sense is that each of your institutions are much different than your program portfolios would suggest. That if I experienced your programs there, it would be really different than the variance in the course offerings and your course catalog looks like. And François, I think, spoke about this a little bit, and Rich Lyons did a little bit yesterday too, but I'd like to get your perspective on how much you market the different character of your institutions and how much of that is a source of sustainability rather than just the program offerings that you're making.
Thanks, Paul. Would anybody like to go first?
Sure. Well, I think it's a very good point, and I think that Rich's talk yesterday was, I thought, fabulous in terms of stressing the importance of culture, and I do believe there's a huge value that comes out of that, which will help us be more sustainable. I'll just sort of give you one example, which is our full-time MBA program. When we ask the students what the most important reason why they come to us, it is because of the collaborative nature of the program, and they continuously have ranked us extremely high in terms of how happy and satisfied and engaged they are in the program. I think that aspect of it is, as I am a finance guy, and probably my remarks sounded very financial, but I do think that culture piece is unbelievably important for the long-term sustainability. I think it's a very good question.
I'll be okay if you want to point out a correlation between who we are as leaders in our institution. I almost heard a bit of causality in your question from us to the institution. I think the causality, if anything, is the other way around. It's from the institutions to us, because there's just not much we can do over our deanships. But hopefully our institutions pick the leaders that match what they want and who can serve them. We did, when I started, a formal brand discovery exercise that was paid by donors, hiring an outside marketing research firm. I think every dean who has done that would say the same thing. We're blown away by the impact of doing that exercise. So Reach has 4 expressions. We have 4 words that describe the attributes of our students. We were planning to keep those as brand pillars internally to the school. When we tested them with the alumni, they resonated so much. I mean, our alumni loved it because it gave them an opportunity to describe themselves to themselves and to others around them. Our employers loved them because it gave them a chance to better understand what is it they liked about our students. And so I would just reinforce what Rich said. I mean, any dean I know who has done that exercise thoroughly of what is our brand, what defines us, has found value with employers, with students, and I would say as well internally with faculty and with the staff. So it is a source, I believe, of sustainability for us because it's a clear and true differentiation. Actually, deans, we get hired away, so do faculty and staff, but our alumni can't divorce us and we cannot divorce them. So having a well-articulated brand that reflects who they are, I think that's a key to success, and I hope sustainability at Wisconsin and every place else.
Okay, so as a state university and a public business school, and we do face limitations in terms of resources. However, there are tremendous amount of opportunities there. And for example, we have been focusing on preparation of the student in terms of academic preparation and professional preparation. The two together can help us to define the brand. And the cultural issue is very important because that will help us to tell the industry the DNA of the student when graduate from the Rutgers Business School. And we work very hard with industry through the preparation for the student and to build up the brand and to make sure everything is a two-way street and to generate more resources by developing the educational partnership and then research partnership. Then we got a return from the company, and they sponsor us, not only for the individual faculty research, but also research center. And so that is because getting research grant from NSF, those days become harder and harder. However, there are tremendous opportunities to get research support, funding support from industry if we do the right things. And if we deliver the promise of the research, if the company found that benefit their practice, the tremendous opportunities there.
Thank you. So to your question, what defines MIT Sloan, what differentiates us, to a large extent, it comes back to the mens hermanos, the motto of MIT. And we live that with our action learning portfolio. So we have a very rich portfolio of courses that allow students to learn by doing. And we actually send them out to partner with industry. And they learn certain concept in the classroom, and then they spend weeks, and we have one program where they spend 6 months working at the partner institutions. And I think that's quite important. It's this mind and hand that differentiates MIT and attracts students that want to be very much in practice and see the implications of research on practice.
Thank you. Paul, that was a great question. Nancy, this is the final question for this session. Thank you.
I'm Nancy DiTomaso from Rutgers Business School. When you start talking about issues of trying to allocate costs to effort, one of the issues that hasn't been addressed that I've heard so far in the conference is you have a portfolio of programs, you also have a portfolio of faculty, and I have not heard much discussion about the size of your classes. You know, how large are the classes, who's teaching them, what are the teaching loads, because when you're talking about revenue generation, all of that comes into play. We've got 3 public schools and 1 private on the panel. I'd be very interested in hearing about those kinds of issues. We've had lots of discussions about that here, and they haven't been easy ones.
Yeah. Thank you, Nancy. Who'd like to begin? Jake?
Sure. So our class sizes differ. So we have some lectures that will have as many as 100 students, and smaller classes, especially the action learning courses, have roughly 25 up to 50 students. So it really differs, and it depends on what fits. So certain courses can take more students. Others, we say it's completely fine if you have a class of 30 students, and that's what we do.
Well, Nancy, you are with us, so you know our class size. For MBA program, minimum class size is 15, and it's but for the undergraduate, we have a large core course, and we have some mega sections. You'll talk about between 100, 200, or even more, and but for electives, are relatively smaller.
So we had a shortcut way of getting at the answer. Start from the fact that given the number of departments and centers and programs that we have, it was easy to determine that being fewer than 85 faculty members made no sense. There were, I think, 72 when I started. We were at 84 last year. You know what happened in Wisconsin, funding of higher education. We are down to 81 this year. But we really don't know how to run the school with less than 85 people. We have a building that has a fixed size, that has fixed classroom size. It's all poured concrete. We make the most of it. Given the faculty, given the building, what's the maximum size of undergraduate that we can get? And that's about 2,550 undergraduates into our program. And then the class size is the outcome of that mix. And frankly, I wish I were in an environment where we had the flexibility of the spaces, and the flexibility of the resources, and the cash flow that respond to demand, so we could optimize our allocation across programs. But the truth is, it's the constraint within which we are. They make the choice and the decision pretty easy, actually. But it all depends on the type of class that we teach. Some classes that are in experiential learning, there might be classes with from 15 to 25 students. We have a lot of lectures which are at around 55 because of the way the building was built in poured concrete. And then we have some lectures that are at up to 300 with lots of sections. The sections tend to be around 25. But yeah, did we optimize? A lot of it is we just comply to the building that we have.
We have so many different programs that it's hard to kind of go through all of them. I mean, our new online MBA program, or the class sizes are typically between 20 and 25 for our synchronous sessions, so they're fairly small. Some of our MBA sections and undergrad sections are around 40 or 50. We don't have too many large classes, but where we struggle the most, and maybe some other business schools have the same issue, is in our part-time MBA program. We actually have 3 different locations in downtown DC and Baltimore, and also in the biotech corridor near NIH. And it's hard to offer everything everywhere. So we're starting to look a lot more at having online electives so that we can make all the courses accessible, maybe just not on a face-to-face basis. The other comment I'd throw out there is that I have found the data available at AACSB to be very helpful. It gives you data on average class sizes in different programs. Another question that we frequently get is the number of staff versus the number of faculty, and you know who raises that question. You can also get that kind of data as well from taking a look at AACSB, so, and professional track versus tenure track faculty as well. So it's a great way, and we've been taking a look at various benchmarks to see, so where we are efficient and where we are not efficient, and it's very helpful in order to be able to communicate to faculty who may not want to teach a class of 35 because they're very comfortable teaching their class size at 20, that this is not typical when you take a look at peer institutions.
Thank you.